This is Jumbo Commander with another deck tech. Today we got Leovold, Emissary of Trest. Let's take a look at our commander, Leovold, Emissary of Trest. He's a Sultai commander. Black, green, blue for a legendary elf advisor. He's a 3/3, and he wants to shake your hand. Well, he also has some text. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. And this guy's going to control some of the card draw at the table. So let's figure out what kind of general Leovold is going to be. Well, first off, I actually think he's kind of going to be a jerk. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like punishing your opponents for having excessive card draw in their EDH decks. I'm a big fan of Notion Thief. But this guy's too abusable. There's going to be some synergies in here that are just going to be, I think, a little bit over the top. But you know what? I do like that second ability. I like the protection that he gives your permanents and yourself. That's pretty cool. Well, he's a Sultai commander, and he's really unique. I mean, we don't have another Sultai commander like this. A lot of the other ones deal with graveyard stuff, so I don't think he's going to be messing around with the graveyard so much. Do you know what? I really struggled trying to figure out what to do with Leovold. And there are a few reasons why. Now I wonder, why did I have so much trouble building this guy? I mean, he's clearly very powerful. And if he's so powerful, why not make a competitive build? There's some advantages to this. The Sultai colors are great. There's the card draw on the ramp, the tutoring. Also, if you like French EDH, there could be some room for a Sultai commander since Tassiger was banned. This guy could be exactly what we're looking for a competitive build. But I hesitate to make a video out of competitive commander builds. And the reason isn't because I don't like competitive commander decks. Far from it. But I feel like when you build a competitive deck, a lot of the slots are locked up. We have way less flexibility for exploring different options for our decks because, well, a lot of the slots are kind of picked for us. And one thing that I really enjoy is providing you with some janky cards and some interesting ways of going about building Leovold. But if you're super interested in a competitive build, please let me know in the comments because I would love to get super mean. Well, if not a competitive build, why not a tiny leaders build? Yes, there's finally a Sultai commander for tiny leaders. That's sweet. Just like the competitive build, if there are a lot of people out there that want to have deck techs about tiny leaders, then please put it in the comments below, and I'd love to make those decks. But I kind of feel like it was a fad that's fading right now, and I want to make deck techs that lots of people like. I think one of the reasons I had a hard time building around Leovold is because, well, there wasn't much to build around. So you might wonder, why not just make a good stuff build? Good stuff decks are good, like by definition. But I don't think they're very interesting to watch videos on. I mean, I feel like you could just probably copy and paste a list and get all the good EDH cards together. I don't know. I think it's much more interesting finding synergies in the colors and working around interesting interactions. Let's take a look at a few of the synergies that are specific to Leovold. Oh my gosh, this deck tech just started, and I'm already feeling dirty explaining Leovold and Teferi's puzzle box. So Leovold says, you can't draw more than one card. Teferi's puzzle box changes the rules of your draw step. It says draw card, all right? Then you take your whole hand and stick it on the bottom of your library. And then you draw that many cards. Oh wait, you've already drawn your one card per turn according to Leovold. So basically the combination says, during your draw step, draw a card and take your whole hand and put it on the bottom of your library. Oh, jeez. This is bad. Oh, what? Maybe this can get better. Anvil of Bogarden. Well, you have no maximum hand size, but then what you do during your draw step, you can draw 2 cards. Just kidding, you have Leovold on the battlefield, so you're only drawing 1, and then you actually then just discard a card. That's it. So you get locked out of your draw step because you got to draw a card and then discard a card. Oh, what have I done? What have I done taking on this deck? Wheel effects are also going to destroy your opponents because they're going to discard their hand and they're going to draw 1. Ugh. You know, usually when we're choosing a target for loot effects, we choose ourselves. But when your opponent can't draw the cards but is still forced to discard, you're going to target them. Cards like Careful Consideration, Wistful Thinking, and Wheel and Deal can all target your opponent. And then they're limited to the amount of cards they draw, and then they have to discard the full amount. This is just blue discard. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. Oh, man. A simple looter used in the draw step can just say, target opponent discards a card. Ugh. Well, what else? Another creature with an even more powerful ability, Jace's Archivist. Blue and tap. Each player discards his or her hand. Oh, we can all discard our hand. Great. Then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. Well, you get the full effect, and all your opponents will draw a single card. Unless someone maybe took their turn and already drew a card, in which case that person just discards their hand. It's also to note that this card is CMC 3 or less. That'll come up later. But one thing I actually do like is that we don't have to activate this. This can sit on the battlefield and just be a, hey, no one mess with me or else I will cause chaos card. You know, if your opponent's going to hate you, he might as well hate you in style. Cephalid Looter. He's a looter, so basically if they've already drawn a card for the turn, it's tap, discard a card. But look, he's like a little squiddlid. Little cephalidolid. I love him. Even better is Cephalid Broker, because it's tap, target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. So no matter what, you're going to say tap, draw card, or no cards, and then discard 2 cards. If you can do these during their draw step too. So, like, let's say that your opponent draws a card, you have Leovold and Cephalid Broker out, then suddenly it's just like, hey bud, discard 2 cards. Ooh. There are a few counterspells that have a little bit of synergy with Leovold because they have card draw attached to it, and one of them happens to be one of my favorite counterspells, Arcane Denial. Basically it says, counter target spell, next turn you draw 2 cards and I draw 1. Unless I have Leovold out, in which case we both draw 1. But honestly, it doesn't matter, you can draw 2. See, Arcane Denial and other counterspells, spot removal, they're a necessary evil in Commander. You need to have some answers. But they don't exactly put you at an advantage in a multiplayer setting. See, if I counter your spell, I'm down a card and you're down a card. But the other players at the table didn't have to do anything. But with a card like Arcane Denial, I replace my card, and I don't actually mind if you go up a card at the cost of what I had to counter. And it might help out politically. You might not dislike me as much if I let you draw 2 cards after I take away your toy. Dream Fracture, I don't like it as much as Arcane Denial. 1 blue, countered spell, we both draw a card. Unless it's your turn and I have Leovold out, and then you don't draw a card because you already drew because it was your turn. I don't know if I like Dream Fracture. I want to point out specifically how douchey Leovold looks right there. I mean, come on. He reminds me of a Las Vegas magician like just releasing doves and having you look at his v-neck. Ugh. So after looking at all the horrible things Leovold can do, what am I actually going to put in my deck? Well, I'm going to start off with careful consideration. It can definitely attack your opponent's hand, but also it can just draw you deeper into your own deck. What else? Jace's Archivist. He's a huge threat, but I like that he sits on the battlefield and becomes a very political threat. I also like the ability of being able to windfall over and over again. What else? Arcane Denial. I would run this card even without Leovold. Time Spiral is great because I'm going to want to refill my hand and search deeper into my deck. And, well, if I happen to take out the rest of my opponent's hands, that might be okay. Do you know what? I think I might even throw in a Cephalid Looter just for style points. Alright, now I'm excited, because what we're getting into is what this deck tech is all about. We're going to make this Sultai Aluren combo. So what on earth is Aluren? Well, Aluren is a very powerful enchantment. It reads 2 green. Any player can play creature cards at instant speed for free as long as their CMC is 3 or less. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Basically, all of the players in the Commander game can just play all their small creatures for free. But I guarantee that you're going to be taking a lot more advantage of this ability than your opponents, even though they might get a free creature at instant speed here or there. So, how are we going to abuse Aluren? Well, the first thing that we need to talk about is we're going to need to get Aluren on the battlefield. And in a singleton format, that can be kind of difficult. And in this color pair, it can be very difficult to search for enchantments. So we're going to need to rely pretty heavily on some tutors in order to find Aluren and find some of these pieces that we need. Now, I know that tutors, they're not the most popular thing, and I myself try and limit the amount of tutors I have in a deck. The reason why is I want my commander decks to be interesting, to have interesting interactions. And I know that you've seen a commander deck out there that tutors for the same card over and over again. And this deck is kind of going to be like that. We're going to tutor for Aluren over and over again in different games. But I guarantee you that the kills and the combos are going to be very varied. They're going to be different every single time. And they're going to be really interesting. So even though the deck kind of revolves around Aluren and we need it to operate, we're going to have different gameplay every single time. Let me explain some of that gameplay to you. So one thing we need to keep in the back of our heads as we review the next few cards is creatures CMC 3 or less come in at instant speed and for free. Cloudstone Curio. 3-mana artifact. Whenever a non-artifact permanent comes into play under your control, like a creature CMC 3 or less, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. Ooh. So you play a creature for free, CMC 3 or less. It has some effect. You return a different creature. But then again, you can cast that creature for free and keep returning other creatures. You're just going to get like infinitely stacked ETB abilities with Cloudstone Curio. Wow, I can see the shenanigans even starting with that. We also have Cavern Harpy. Blue-black for a flying 1/2 beast. Sorry, 2/1 beast. And when he comes into play, you have to return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand. Alright, seems like a downside, but it's really not in this deck. It also has the added ability of pay 1 life, and you return the Harpy to your hand. So almost like Cloudstone Curio gives you the option of returning and bouncing creatures, Cavern Harpy can do the same thing, where you can sort of chain together these free casting cost creatures by bouncing the other creature, then bouncing the Harpy, playing the other creature, playing the Harpy, then keep going over and over again. Let's explain the combo in a little bit more detail so you understand. Alright, here's my battlefield. I have some kick-ass sleeves. Unfortunately, I've only drawn basics. Let's see what we got here. Well, we got Aluren on the battlefield, because I think that's a critical piece. What else do we have? Ooh, a new card, Parasitic Strix. 2 and a blue for 2/2 Flying Bird. It's an artifact owl. And when Parasitic Strix comes into play, if you have a black permanent, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. All right, so let's put that Parasitic Strix into play, and his trigger goes on the stack. Okay, he's going to look for a black permanent. Well, remember, we can play stuff at instant speed for free if it's CMC 3 or less, so why don't we put a black permanent into play? Let's put that Cavern Harpy that we talked about into play. So it comes into play. There we go. We got a black permanent on the battlefield, but the Parasitic Strix's trigger is still on the stack. We have this Cavern Harpy trigger. Okay? When Cavern Harpy comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand. All right. So we resolve that, and that sends the Parasitic Strix back to our hand. Then the Parasitic Strix trigger comes off, and, well, there's a Cavern Harpy on the battlefield. We've now netted 2 life and drained our opponent for 2 life. And look, we can pay 1 to return the Cavern Harpy to its owner's hand. And this will reset the combo, and we can go over and over and over again. And there's different variations of doing that because everything's at instant speed. You do have some flexibility about playing around removal, how you stack your triggers, and you also were probably going to have more on the board than this, so you're going to have some pretty complicated and interesting interactions. So I already explained Parasitic Strix and its combination with Cavern Harpy, but there's also Colostra Healer. The key is the gaining life to offset the life loss of returning the Cavern Harpy to your hand. These can also be done with Cloudstone Curio, much easier because you just need 2 creatures to go off. If you're constantly bouncing creatures, it's pretty easy to gain infinite mana with a card like Cloud of Fairies or Priest of Gix. You're playing it for free and netting mana every single time you play it for free. Wormfang Newt and Wormfang Turtle. When these guys come into play, they exile land, and when they leave play, the land comes back. Why on earth do I have these cards in here? Well, first off, it's like a weird frog thing that's about to eat a guy, and actually, I like the look of that turtle. I have a soft spot for turtles, and that guy looks pretty cute. But if you can bounce these guys back and forth, you can exile land in and out of the battlefield. Like Piranha Marsh. When it enters the battlefield, target player loses 1 life. So we can see that the combos are becoming a little bit jankier as you flash a turtle in and out that then has a Piranha Marsh come in and out, which slowly drains the battlefield. Or you can gain infinite life with Radiant Fountain, or you can search up these combos with Teleria West. You can give everyone flying. You can see I'm stretching a little bit. Actually, one of the best things you could do is move a Scryland in and out so that you can scry to a card that actually wins the game instead of a turtle. So it's not all janky land exiling combos. How about Baleful Strix, Coiling Oracle, Dream Thief, Raven Familiar, Seagate Oracle? The list actually goes on about creature cards CMC 3 or less that net you a card when they come into play. So if you keep bouncing these back and forth, let's look at that Coiling Oracle. You basically can draw your entire deck. With Coiling Oracle, you can get lands onto the battlefield untapped, which is pretty great. And then you can draw yourself into another way to win the game. Another way to win the game could be Laboratory Maniac, that you can flash in at instant speed and draw the last card. Winning with Lab Maniac is always great. There are a lot of great ETB abilities out there. The mages, the hedge mages, this Hag Hedge Mage has 2 abilities that will often trigger. Having your opponents discard a card, or getting a little bit of recursion back to the top of your library. Recursion is going to be important because we're so reliant on combo finishes. Also, Selkie Hedge Mage can gain you infinite life if you include her in a loop, and it can return target tapped creature. Oh, if only it was untapped. These are pretty fair versions of creatures in the loop. Let's look at one that really destroys your opponent. How about Rashad Cutpurse? When he comes into play, each opponent sacrifices a permanent unless he or she pays 1. If you include Rashad Cutpurse in the loop, it just makes them sacrifice everything because they're never going to pay enough mana to keep their stuff alive. Is it too mean? I don't know. I kind of like these Rashad Cutpurses. And plus, it's a pirate. It's a pirate. So this is a deck built around enter the battlefield abilities. And so if we can return those to our hand with a card like Mana War, Aether Adept, Sidraxis Alchemist, Quickling, Dreamstalker, well, we're going to get the added value of multiple enter the battlefield abilities. We also get the tempo advantage of cards like Mana War, Aether Adept, and Sidraxis Alchemist by returning our opponent's creatures to their hand. But with Aluren, we also get an interesting combination. All you need is Aluren in one of these creatures to be able to play the creature and then bounce itself back to your hand, with the exception of the Sidraxis Alchemist. So what does that get you? You play a Mana War, you bounce it back to your hand, you play it, you bounce it back to your hand, you play it, you bounce it. Well, I guess you get infinite creature plays. Now, how do we take advantage of infinite casting creatures? Well, what I'd really like with these bouncing creatures is a card like Perforos. It just wins the game. Your Quickling goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then you just destroy your opponents. Actually, as long as we're having a wish list, I want an Imperial Recruiter to get some of these creatures. Maybe we can tweak this around when we have 4-color commanders. But for now, red is not on the table. But there's a few cards that do a decent imitation, like Vela the Nightclad. Vela says, if Vela or another creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. And it's not just dies, it's leaves the battlefield. So as you keep casting and returning to your hand, Vela's going to drain out your opponents. It also does not have a relevant text above it. Other creatures you control have Intimidate. We have a lot of small creatures in this deck, and so being able to poke in with some damage is not inconsequential. We also have a card like Tidespout Tyrant, and if we have infinite creature casts, we can just return every permanent that's not ours to its owner's hands. That's going to win you the game. So if we're bouncing creatures over and over again and replaying them, and these are all small creatures, what about Azuri, Claw of Progress? We're going to basically get infinite experience counters if we can demonstrate this loop with Azuri. He can pile counters onto someone, and we can just attack someone for infinite damage. Just the good old-fashioned way. Also, if we're playing a lot of creatures, Azuri can just be a value guy. Just get in with a lot of damage if we don't happen to have Aluren. Also, as you'd imagine, we have a lot of creatures with CMC 3 or less. So we have a lot of weak creatures, like 2/2s, 2/3s. And so Azuri can make those creatures relevant in the later game. If we're going to be playing creatures over and over and over again, and by the way, we are casting them, why not just Tendrils our opponent out? I love it. Or as long as we're playing with Storm, let's just Mind's Desire and go crazy. We can kind of take this in a Storm direction. I've seen a lot more efficient Storm builds, but maybe a Miser's Tendrils of Agony would be pretty good. So combos are really reliant on your draw ability and recursion ability, so let's take a closer look at that. If you're in the middle of an infinite loop, you can draw your deck with a card like Glimpse of Nature, Primordial Sage, or Soul of the Harvest. But you don't even need to be in an infinite loop. You can just play your creature spells normally. There's a lot of inexpensive creatures in this deck, and so you can gain a lot of value with some of these cards on the battlefield. Hey, did you mention combo draw? Why not put in Null Profusion and Recycle? They're the exact same card, just color shifted, and they basically say whenever you play a card, draw a card. This will let you chain together your entire deck, but there's a little bit of a downside. I don't know if we're going to take full advantage of these cards, but they're certainly amazing, especially that art. Things are going to die, you're going to get disrupted, so why don't you just get those combo pieces back? And what better way to do it than with a creature CMC 3 or less? Now you can't just have everything be combo, 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 combo. So let's find out what we can also use these creatures for. I want the other guy from Trest, Edric. We have a lot of really small creatures that are going to be entering the battlefield. A bunch of them naturally have flying, some sort of evasion, and enter the battlefield ability. Man, let's make a slightly bigger version of Edric. Edric says whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. Now, there are some super oppressive Edric decks out there. They have tons of 1-drops and evasion and extra turns, and they're probably going to be way better than this deck. But adding Edric definitely has some flavor, and it also maybe gives this deck a little bit of legs. Gives you something to do with those small CMC creatures. Along with Edric, let's add Coastal Piracy and Biden of Thassa to add some redundancy to that draw effect. Thada Adel Acquisitor and Trigon Predator will deal with those pesky artifacts and enchantments while being evasive and having a little bit of extra benefit. Thassa God of the Sea, Mogus's Marauder, and Champion of Leovold are perfect inclusions. Not only do they give your creatures some sort of evasion to help them hit your opponent, they're all creatures CMC 3 or less, so they can be played with Aluren. And also, if you have a loop, Champion of Leovold gets infinitely large and infinitely unblockable. Mogus's Marauder can give haste and a sort of unblockability with Intimidate at instant speed if you happen to maybe draw your entire deck. And Thassa, God of the Sea, can scry, getting you to those combo pieces earlier. Really excellent cards here. You're going to have a lot of freedom picking the kind of creatures you want in this deck. You want them to be pretty small so they can hit your opponent. You kind of want them evasive. You want them to have utility, and there's tons of different options. A card like Viridian Corruptor has the utility of destroying target artifact, but it also has Infect, so maybe you can have a different kind of take there. A card like Bone Shredder has the evasion and can kill something. Yeah, that's pretty good. We could just add a bunch of ninjas if we're going to be attacking. Ninja of the Dark Hours does not come in for free off of Aluren, but it basically comes into free as you ninjutsu him into play. There's a lot of directions you can take this deck, so feel free to customize this section. You can even leave out the entire Aluren strategy and kind of go for a little bit bigger mid-range creatures and take it in a direction of all Edric or all ninjas, or you could even go Sultai Infect attack. Oh man, there's a lot of options for Leovold now that I've kind of explored it. I felt locked in before, but now I realize that Sultai has some of the best interactions for EDH. That's the deck tech. It was a little all over the place. A little bit of Leovold shenanigans, some Aluren combo, a little bit of upgraded Edric. So tell me what you think. Did I make the right deck tech? Should I have made a competitive one? Maybe a French list? How about a Tiny Leaders deck? Let me know in the comments. And I really want to thank you guys for watching. Have a great one. Bye-bye.